The tragic incident involving Tilikum, the orca at SeaWorld Orlando, who killed his trainer Don Brancheau, shocked the world and reignited the debate over keeping such intelligent creatures in captivity. This was not the first time Tilikum had been involved in a fatal attack, as he had previously claimed 2 other lives during his 27 years in confinement. The violent nature of the incident, witnessed by horrified park visitors, forced the public to confront the ethical implications of holding orcas in small tanks for entertainment. The tragedy raised urgent questions about whether these highly social and self-aware animals should be subjected to such conditions. David Kirby's upcoming book, Death at SeaWorld, delves into the dangers and moral dilemmas of keeping killer whales in captivity. Through extensive research and interviews, Kirby exposes the hidden realities of life for orcas in theme parks. The book also highlights the inner turmoil experienced by trainers who once worked at SeaWorld Orlando, revealing their growing doubts about the industry. These trainers, who once believed in the mission of marine parks, began questioning the ethics of their work after witnessing the psychological toll on the animals. Tilikum's story is particularly harrowing, as his life in captivity was marked by stress, aggression, and isolation. Captured in the wild as a young orca, he spent decades performing tricks in exchange for food, a far cry from the freedom of the open ocean. His repeated involvement in fatal incidents suggests that captivity may have exacerbated his aggressive tendencies. Experts argue that orcas, with their complex social structures and high intelligence, suffer profoundly in confined environments. The stress of captivity can lead to abnormal behaviors, including violence toward trainers. The incident with Don Brancheau was a turning point for public perception of marine parks. Witnesses described the attack as brutal and prolonged, leaving no doubt about the orca's intent. SeaWorld's initial response, which blamed Brancheau for her own death, was met with widespread criticism. The tragedy forced the park to reassess its safety protocols, but many argue that no amount of training can eliminate the inherent risks of working with captive orcas. The event also sparked protests and calls for an end to orca captivity altogether. Behind the scenes, some SeaWorld trainers began to question their role in the industry. 4 former trainers featured in Kirby's book described their growing unease as they observed the orcas deteriorating mental health. They recount instances of orcas showing signs of depression, frustration, and even self-harm. These trainers, who once bonded with the animals, realized that no amount of care could replicate the whales' natural habitat. Their stories provide a heartbreaking glimpse into the emotional toll of captivity on both animals and humans. Scientific research supports the idea that orcas are ill-suited for life in captivity. In the wild, they travel vast distances, form tight-knit pods, and exhibit complex hunting behaviors. Confinement in small tanks deprives them of these natural behaviors, leading to physical and psychological distress. Studies have shown that captive orcas suffer from shorter lifespans, dorsal fin collapse, and increased aggression compared to their wild counterparts. These findings challenge the justification for keeping orcas in marine parks. The public's growing awareness of orca intelligence has further fueled opposition to captivity. Orcas possess self-awareness, problem-solving skills, and emotional depth, traits that make their confinement even more ethically questionable. Documentaries like Blackfish have played a significant role in exposing the dark side of marine parks, turning popular opinion against the industry. As more people learn about the suffering of captive orcas, attendance at such parks has declined, signaling a shift in societal values. SeaWorld's business model relies on the spectacle of orca performances, but the backlash has forced the company to adapt. In recent years, the park announced it would end its orca breeding program and phase out theatrical shows. While these changes are a step in the right direction, critics argue they do not go far enough. Many advocate for the retirement of all captive orcas to seaside sanctuaries, where they can experience a more natural environment without exploitation. The story of Tilikum and Don Brancheau serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of exploiting wild animals for entertainment. It underscores the need for stricter regulations and a reevaluation of our relationship with marine life. As society becomes more informed about animal welfare, the demand for ethical treatment of orcas and other marine species continues to grow. The legacy of this tragedy may ultimately lead to the end of orca captivity worldwide. For the trainers who worked with Tilikum, the emotional scars remain. They describe a mix of grief, guilt, and anger over what happened to Brancheau and the orcas they once cared for. Their testimonies reveal the deep bonds they formed with the animals, as well as the pain of realizing those bonds were built on a flawed system. These trainers now advocate for change, using their insider knowledge to push for better conditions or outright bans on captivity. The scientific community has also amplified its criticism of marine parks, citing overwhelming evidence of the harm caused by captivity. Researchers argue that orcas' cognitive and emotional capacities make them particularly vulnerable to the stresses of confinement. The practice of separating calves from their mothers, forcing artificial social groupings, and using food as a reward for tricks are all cited as sources of trauma. These practices, once standard in the industry, are now widely condemned. Despite the progress made in raising awareness, thousands of marine animals remain in captivity worldwide. While orcas are the most visible symbols of this issue, dolphins, belugas, and other species also suffer in similar conditions. Advocacy groups continue to fight for their release, but the road to change is slow. The entertainment industry's profitability often outweighs ethical concerns, making it difficult to enact meaningful reform. The tragedy at SeaWorld Orlando was a wake-up call for many, but the fight to end marine captivity is far from over. Public pressure, legal challenges, and corporate accountability are all necessary to drive lasting change. As more people reject the idea of animals as performers, the future of marine parks hangs in the balance. The hope is that one day, orcas like Tilikum will no longer be confined for human amusement. In the end, the story of Tilikum is not just about one orca or one trainer, it's about humanity's responsibility toward other intelligent beings. The ethical implications of captivity extend beyond orcas to all creatures exploited for entertainment. As society evolves, so too must our treatment of animals. The lessons learned from this tragedy should guide us toward a more compassionate and just relationship with the natural world. The legacy of Don Branchot's death and Tilikum's life in captivity will forever be intertwined. Their story has become a catalyst for change, inspiring a global movement to end the exploitation of marine animals. While the road ahead is long, the growing consensus is clear: keeping orcas in captivity is morally indefensible. The hope is that future generations will look back on this practice as a relic of a less enlightened time.